Hello and welcome to Who Wore It Better, where I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the weekend. What's this? Ooh! Little bit of bubbly. Raw begins with a Universal title contract signing with Seth and Strowman, attorneys at law. Can they coexist? They asked for the millionth time in the last 20 years or so. Rollins and Strowman have some kind of somewhat friendly banter here. Rollins reminds Strowman that he has done what Braun could not do, and that was beat Brock Lesnar. They signed the contract. The OC interrupt AJ Styles with a great heel promo here. He's very entertaining as a heel, as opposed to when he was the white meat babyface before his recent heel turn. So he gets in the ring, he tears up the contract they just signed, they has fight. We then go to a tag team match as Seth and Strowman take on Anderson and Gallows in a bit of a rematch. It's some good action here. Seth rolls Anderson up for the win, but right afterwards Styles is on the attack. Seth cleans house though, and then on the outside Strowman does his shoulder tackles and accidentally takes out his own tag team partner in the process. Rudolph show up next. That's Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler. The five baddies beat down Strowman. They hit him with an assisted magic killer. So the champions are down, the baddies stand tall. Not the last time we'll see OC in the next few minutes, because after the commercial break, they're interviewing Cedric Alexander for his upcoming King of the Ring match later in the night, when the OC just attack him for reasons that are never fully explained. I guess you could say he's in the wrong place at the wrong time, what have you. That will play a factor in his match later in the night, but this also pretty much telegraphs who AJ is going to be fighting at the Clash of Champions for the U.S. title, because in his promo earlier he says, who's going to challenge me for the U.S. Championship? Well, I think this pretty much cinches it up. And speaking of that contract signing from earlier, they announced later in the night that Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be the guest moderator for the redo of the contract signing next week at Madison Square Garden, because they need ratings. But anyway, back on the timeline, Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler are taking on Hawkins and Ryder up next. It's a short but competitive match. Roode hits Hawkins with the glorious DDT to win the match. So yes, it is a thrown together slapdash team, but between the tag team turmoil match last week and this one, at least they're being built up like a threat. Lacey Evans versus Natalya up next. I thought, hang on, so is Lacey a Raw or a SmackDown talent? Because right now I have no clue, not that it really matters anyway. Last week I was very quick to tear down the Lacey-Bayley match on SmackDown, but I'll give credit where it's due, because I think that they more than made up for it this week with Lacey's match against Natalya. Much better outcome this time around. The match ends when Lacey tosses her handkerchief at Natalya's face to distract her, hits the woman's right to win the match. So yes, compared to last week's debacle against Bayley, Lacey more than made up for it this week with Natalya. Becky Lynch makes her way to the ring to address the comments by Sasha Banks last week, and she spits some hot fire here, no pun intended. Becky talks about how in NXT she was held back while Sasha and Charlotte were the centerpiece of the women's division, and she talks about how Sasha should be in this position. She should be as great as she says she is, but instead it's kind of like an inverted version of the Dolph Ziggler, it should be me, saying, you wish you were me. You should be me, is what Becky is saying. It's kind of, it's one of those things, you wish you were me, but not really done in an arrogant way. And as Becky's talking, Sasha's music plays, and Becky's all jazzed for us. Oh yeah, let's do this. Come on, let's go. Like, very rarely you hear people talk over their own interruptions in promos. Like, usually they kind of stop and they wait for the music cue and they look in silence. But I like how Becky kind of like talked over it, making it feel more authentic. Sasha Banks, by the way, dressed like she just came fresh off the VMAs, and she's got a great promo here too, talking about how the only reason people care about you is because Nia Jax broke your face. And she goes, I wish Nia Jax could break my face, people would care about me. And so she says she's only in it for the paycheck and everything, and she wants to challenge Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title at Clash of Champions. And she says the man is going to be the boss's bitch. We couldn't make it through the entire segment without saying the word bitch, could we? We get one of the most awkward tosses to commercial break by the Street Profits after that ladies segment. Then we go to a King of the Ring quarterfinals match, for reals this time, as Cedric Alexander takes on Baron Corbin. And Cedric is not only selling the injury he got from the OC earlier in the night, but also the beating he's getting from Baron Corbin in this match. And these two just absolutely bring it. This is such a good match. I know it's rare to hear good Baron Corbin match in one sentence, but this was it, man. This is a great match. I think Corbin looked great here. He was such a good, smarmy heel. I think that, the King of the Ring stuff is not on the same level as a Universal Championship. And so I think people were just like not ready to see Baron Corbin in this current incarnation as champion. But I think the pressure's off a little bit now. And I think we are kind of allowing him him, maybe on a subconscious level, to be a bit more of a great heel in this tournament, which is what he's doing. You know, before and after this matchup here, after he beat Cedric, by the way, he's like caressing the crown and the scepter and all that stuff before and afterward. And, you know, I think they want us to think, oh, he's going to super duper jinx it and not make it through. I wouldn't be surprised if he made it all the way through this tournament, won the whole thing, just to blow that superstition, you know, away for good, basically. Like I said, I think the pressure's off him now. I finally get it with Corbin in this current, the way he's being built here. And, you know, at first I was against it, resisting it, but you know what? Like, I've always been kind of hot and cold with Baron Corbin. He's had his moments, and then, like, there's times lately he's been overpushed, but I think this is like an ideal level for him, and I'm actually on board the King Corbin train now. Daniel Bryan puts out a statement saying he had nothing to do with Eric Rowan's shenanigans over the last month or so. He still demands an apology from Roman Reigns. We then get a very in-depth backstage promo by the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley. You know, what's up with her and Sasha and their relationship, and, you know, who's overshadowing who between her and Becky Lynch, the other women's champion on the main roster. Bayley's pretty good here with her delivery in this promo. We then get another Viking Raiders squash match as they take on local talent Brian Thomas and Tyler Hastings, and we get this kind of like deadpan, not so great delivery promo between the two of them, saying that when they're done, they're going to turn the Viking Raiders into a couple of Baltimoreans in Baltimore, Maryland. Boo that. The Vikings just beat the hell out of these two guys. It feels like more so than usual, and the Vikings win here. It seems that last week's, you know, tag team turmoil appearance by them was an aberration. Apparently they weren't supposed to be in that matchup anyway, which explains, you know, why all of a sudden, oh, they're back to fighting jobbers. And that stinks. I kind of want them to like be fighting competitive teams again, because when they're just fighting jobbers every week, it just seems like they're being, I don't know, bullies is the right word, but it makes them seem kind of weak. It's like, why don't you fight some real competition finally? We then get our next King of the Ring quarterfinal match as Samoa Joe takes on Ricochet. Also a great match. This one does end in controversy though, when both guys have a double pin after a top rope maneuver. Each guy's got one arm over the other. The referee makes a 3 count, sees what's going on. He goes to the headsets in the timekeeper's area to talk to somebody who in charge, according to the announcers. Why wouldn't you have the name of the person in charge that John Cone is talking to? Also, Cone is blatantly mic'd up here. He's got the lav mic like sticking out, kind of like this basically, out of his referee shirt. And when he's done talking to somebody on the headset, he just tells Joe and Ricochet, hey, you know, we don't know yet. We'll let you know who won later. Bye. And he leaves. What a weird thing. I've never seen that happen before. I've seen this happen before where we get kind of like the wonky double pin. They find some way to stretch that out for later. But that's the first time I've ever seen the referee just go, nope, I'm not talking to you. Bye. It's just so weird because for the boner Vince McMahon had as little as a few weeks ago talking about how real sports don't have the sports playing through commercials, so we're not going to have wrestling during our commercials. You know, you're trying to be more like a legitimate sport. You go ahead and do this thing that you would never actually see in a legitimate sport where the referee just kind of delays the decision for some other time in the future. Anyway, it's later determined that it's going to be a triple threat semifinal match between Joe, Ricochet, and Baron Corbin for the Raw side. So a triple threat. You know, I think it's interesting that they're doing that. You know, it kind of breaks up the whole monotony of singles matches. I'm not going to say, oh, it violates tradition of the King of the Ring. You know, it's their tournament. They can make up the rules as they want. And it's going to be a good match, I feel. It's just kind of interesting. They couldn't decide on having, you know, just one or the other there. Backstage, Braun and Seth are chatting it up, and Braun thinks that next week's contract signing is a setup because Austin's the guest moderator and Austin's a big fan of Seth. Seth completely denies that notion, but he says he's in favor of Austin being there because it might keep the peace, as it were. We then go to a new Firefly Funhouse. I haven't seen one of those in a while. And as Bray is talking, the boss puppet shows up and threatens Bray. Then Bray goes, well, look at what I've been making, boss, and just pulls out all this money and he just gives it to the Vince puppet, which was amazing. But basically, it's part of a larger thing because they're talking about the fact that Bray is challenging Braun or Seth for a match at Hell in a Cell next month. And so Bray just cuts a promo on the both of them saying, you know, you guys aren't a real team. Me and my friends here at the Funhouse are a team that help me cope with the pain, but the Fiend helps me, you know, dole out the pain to people. So he says, see you in hell, let me in, this and that sort of thing. And that's where it ends. So pretty strong Firefly Funhouse here. And again, just laugh out loud hysterics, the fact, the kind of tongue-in-cheek, the fact that the Fiend merch is making all this money. And so Bray's like, holding the money out. That was great. Backstage, Rey Mysterio is being interviewed and he says, isn't it crazy that sometimes our children can can be our greatest teachers. Not verbatim, that's the gist of what he was saying. Anyway, Ray says he is not done with wrestling yet, and so I guess we'll see him more in the future. The Miz takes on Cesaro up next. Cesaro, of course, is fresh off his appearance on the NXT UK TakeOver show. I heard that match and the whole show in general was great. I really look forward to watching it when I have some time this week. This is also a really good match. Miz wins the skull-crushing finale. I'm happy that Miz won. I don't want to nitpick here, but I think it's interesting it comes to the expense of Cesaro, who I think they also need to build up. You think the Miz could get a convincing win against like anybody else, because we know he loses a lot, but for him, after having lost so much, to beat Cesaro so decisively, I thought was really interesting. But hopefully this won't hurt Cesaro too much. But yeah, any win for the Miz right now is good. Main event time as Becky Lynch and Bayley take on Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross in a Champions Showcase match. All the lady champions of the main roster are represented here in this matchup. Earlier in the match, Sasha Banks shows up and kind of watches the thing at ringside. It's an okay match. It ends in a DQ when Sasha gets in the ring and beats up Becky as she's in the middle of her hot tag. Sasha hits Becky with a steel chair. Bayley runs in and stops her. We get this moment where she's got the chair, looks back and forth at Sasha and at Becky, lives with this evil little crooked smile, and starts beating up Becky with the chair, much to the delight of the crowd as we fade to black. She's in mid-beatdown as we go to black. What is it with turning the four horsewomen heel and almost always working out the other way they kind of intended? It seems that that's the quick solution. It seems, in lack of a proper storyline or good rivalries, is just turn them heel. Ever since SummerSlam last year, we've seen all of the horsewomen turn heel, most often against each other. Ever since that span, it was Becky Lynch at SummerSlam. Charlotte Flair was the babyface by default, but she became heel because the fans rejected the Becky Lynch heel turn. Then Sasha turns heel a few weeks ago, and now Bayley's turning heel. That just seems the way of the world right now, and I'm really curious to see, what this means for Bayley's heel. I mean, Lord knows I've been calling this for a while. I've been wanting a Bayley heel turn for quite some time, but even with all that, I've never even stopped to think about what that actually means and what that actually, how that's going to play into her character in the future. I'm really curious to see how this will affect things in the weeks to come. Well, in the short term, it seems like not a whole lot's changed with Bayley's character, because she makes the exact same entrance to open SmackDown as she always does, with the Bayley buddies, the outstretched arms, what have you. A very interesting reaction here from the crowd. It's basically a mix of sustained boos and cheers simultaneously. We get some chants for Bayley. Even Bayley herself on the microphone says she's confused to what's going on here. Her defense and her explanation for what went on was that she was just there to defend her best friend Sasha, and she wants to be a good role model for the kids. I find that to be kind of a weak explanation, because especially in juxtaposition to her actions on Monday and the way she kind of telegraphed the heel turn with the evil smile and everything, it could be one of those things where it's a slow burn where she claims to have good intentions, but then over time it devolves into something a little more evil. But right now, when you compare it to other heel turns you've seen in the last year or so, those were much more immediate, and boom, you know exactly what their motives are, like Sasha Banks a few weeks ago. And if you want to go back a little further, Daniel Bryan, when he turned heel, beating AJ Styles the title, you knew exactly what was going on with him then. So if this is kind of a weird gradual descent into madness, I'm not entirely, I don't know what to think about that one. Anyway, Bayley calls out Charlotte because they're fighting each other at Clash of Champions. Charlotte does come out and refutes the idea that she's selfish, because compared to Bayley, what you see is what you get. Sasha Banks interrupts, stands on the ramp for a while. Charlotte's just fighting Bayley unprovoked basically, and then we get the 2-on-1 beatdown. They start taking turns beating Charlotte with chair, and that's how it ends. We get a bit of a Becky chant, but Lynch does not appear. So it seems to me they're trying to make Charlotte a babyface again. But from everything we've seen from last SummerSlam on, I'd say more specifically Evolution on, from when Charlotte was rejected as the babyface and they embraced her as a heel, and all the healer stuff she did, especially in the build to WrestleMania and the months after that, why would they ever think we would just immediately embrace Charlotte as a babyface in all this? Just from a simple kind of a somewhat tweener promo where it's what you see is what you get, and then this beatdown here, I don't know. That's not enough enough for me to really feel sympathy for Charlotte's character at this point. So why do they keep trying to, when will they figure out that pushing Charlotte babyface is not going to work? She's a much better heel. Are they all heel now? Who knows? King of the Ring quarterfinal matchup next as Elias takes on Ali. This is some good stuff. I love this match here. Elias goes for a axe handle to the outside, eats a super kick. Elias gets out of the way of the 450, hits the drift away. Elias wins and advances to the semifinals. You know, things have been really heating up with this tournament. In terms of the matches they've been having, pretty much every match so far has been bringing it. Samoa Joe's backstage visiting SmackDown. He says that the triple threat announcement for the night before was but a minor convenience. He also is saying he's there to put the remaining SmackDown guys in the tournament on notice in the wake of King Samoa Joe's future reign. We then get a backstage little appearance from Aleister Black. We haven't seen that scamp in a while. He says that if the mountain will not come to me, then I will come to the mountain. That makes total sense because mountains don't generally move. You know, they don't physically move to you. You have to come to them. Anyway, he is going to be looking for a fight in the ring later in the night. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross take on Fire and Desire in non-title action. Pretty good match. Alexa looks to have the match in the bag, but she's distracted by what she sees on the outside between Mandy Rose and Nikki Cross. Sonya Deville takes advantage of it, and then they hit a double team move to Alexa for Fire and Desire to win. So I smell a title rematch coming in the not too distant future, probably at the pay-per-view. What happened to that storyline we saw about a month or so ago with Mandy and Sonya, where we had kind of like the innocent lesbian attraction thing happening? Where'd that go? Backstage, Samoa Joe mocks Chad Gable for his height and says there's no room for weakness in Joe's kingdom. Then we go to a Randy Orton promo where he says that for weeks I've been laying these traps out to Kofi Kingston and he's been falling for it every time. They show a series of highlights from the last few weeks, and then Randy calls Kofi out to the ring. Kofi's music plays, but he's getting beat down at the ramp by the Revival. Kofi still has some fight left in him though. He tries to fight back, but the numbers game is too much. Super RKO by Orton and the Revival, and that's where that segment ends. More evil Orton as we get building up to their rematch at Clash of Champions. But I think that they risk laying on a little thick and making it hard to believe that Orton's actually going to win at the pay-per-view. Roman Reigns versus Eric Rowan's announced for Clash of Champions. Then we go to our next quarterfinal match for King of the Ring as Chad Gable takes on Andrade. Great back and forth here. Some interference by Zelina Vega slows Chad's progress a little bit. In the end though, Chad does a sweet counter out of a sunset flip to pin Andrade and win the match. And so 2 weeks in a row has kind of upset victories here. So I'm really enjoying this like sudden out of nowhere push for Chad Gable. I don't like his dopey self when he gets insulted for his height. I like to see more fire in his character that way. I really hope they don't mess this push up, and I especially hope that Chad Gable really takes advantage of it. Aleister Black's open challenge is answered by Shelton Benjamin. Pretty short and sweet. Shelton falls to the Black Mass, and that's pretty much that. We then see backstage, Drake Maverick and his wife Renee Michelle are being pursued by the Singh Brothers, Lucha House Party, or specifically Grand Metalik, and then the B Team as well over the 24/7 title. Ultimately, after a series of schoolboy pins, Bo Dallas emerges the new champion and they run off. Then we see Shinsuke Nakamura take on some local talent, and the role of Leo Rush is played by Sami Zayn. Sami has a live mic during the matchup, and he will not stop talking and yelling and hooting and hollering as Shinsuke beats down a local talent, beats him with a Kinshasa, and that's pretty much that. Right after that match though, the continuing saga of the 24/7 contingent. We have the B Team and pretty much everyone's in the ring there. Ultimately, Drake Maverick returns, rolls up Bo Dallas to regain the 24/7 title, and Corey with his great line on commentary saying he's probably going to take his wife in a limo to some chain steakhouse or chain restaurant. Obviously a reference to the story that Chris Jericho seemed to have lost the AEW Championship belt at the Longhorn Steakhouse in Tallahassee over the weekend. So anyway, as Drake is celebrating on the ramp, we see the throne set up in the background, and all of a sudden R-Truth emerges from under the rope and a lampshade on his head, and Byron going, is that a lampshade? And Graves goes, no, it's R-Truth. So Truth rolls up Drake, wins back the championship for the 14th time, and I was afraid we weren't going to see any representation of the 24/7 division on this week. We didn't see any on Monday, so I was really nervous for Tuesday, but we saw it happen on SmackDown. Daniel Bryan makes his way to the ring next. Big chance for him here, and he says there's a lot of things you might not like about me, but one thing you can say is that I'm not a liar. He calls Roman Reigns out for an apology. Roman makes his way out, but he is jumped from behind by Eric Rowan. Daniel wants to stop him, but Rowan shoves him away. Rowan then gets on the microphone and basically owns up to what he did backstage and in the parking lot with the car crash and everything, and says he challenges Daniel to slap him again. Slap me, Dan. It's weird to hear Daniel Bryan referred to as Dan, by the way. But anyway, Rowan says he's proud of what he did, but he'll be most proud when he takes out Roman at Clash of Champions, beats Roman Roman up some more, and then Daniel gets in between them again, saying, "What are you doing?" He slaps Rowan once again. Rowan hits Daniel with the iron claw through the announce table to end the show as Rowan screams, "Never again, never again is someone going to tell me what to do." It's very interesting that Rowan seems to be now breaking out on his own as a singles heel, no longer a henchman, no longer part of a tag team. Seems to be just Eric Rowan on his own. It seems to appear that they are turning Daniel Bryan face as a result of this, or maybe it's all an elaborate ruse and they're all going to be bros again after Clash of Champions. Time will tell, but I am very intrigued to see where they go with Rowan here and what the end game with this renewed singles push for him, where it seems to be going. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. And I have been just racking my brain for the last half hour trying to figure out which show is going to win this week. I just want to pick one winner this week because, I've been doing ties a lot when I'm kind of torn. And I feel it's kind of a cop-out after enough time, so I kind of want to just pick one show this week. And so ultimately, I don't know, it's, again, going back and forth, call it a coin flip, call it what you will. I'm going to give this one to SmackDown. And the reason I'm giving it to SmackDown is because for all the good that we saw on Raw, I appreciated on Raw the match quality, especially Cedric and Corbin. I liked the overarching storyline of Bayley and Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, that sort of thing. And also I liked a little bit of redemption, Lacey Evans having a good match with Natalya here. But also the issues I had were kind of like they're rehashing the can they coexist storyline. I'm sick of seeing Viking Raiders having their squash matches. Miz over Cesaro was kind of a questionable thing as well. With SmackDown, the things I liked about SmackDown was that we were seeing a lot of development with not just the recurring characters, but also some new ones as well. Seeing Rowan all of a sudden kind of being brought out on his own was really felt different and refreshing to me. Chad Gable getting more time to shine, more time in the last 2 weeks it seems than he's had in the previous umpteen months as of late. So seeing more of a shot on him now. I will say that Bayley's, like I said, her explanation after her heel turn on Monday, which was great, mind you, I felt a little wishy-washy. And then I think when the euphoria or the good feelings of the heel turn died down, I think people were going, "Oh shit, she still has to wrestle Charlotte next, and she's a heel too. So how are they going to reconcile that?" That was a bit clunky to me. But I think both shows were really strong. Ultimately, I think I just enjoyed SmackDown more because there was a bit of difference with it. You could say it's kind of a detriment that Kevin Owens was not part of the show. However, because I think it's one of the top baby faces the show has. But at the same time, I think him being gone and Shane being gone, I think opened the door for a lot of other things to be seen. So that's, in my opinion, why I think SmackDown wins this week. But let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Bryan Zane, and I'll see you next time.